Day 95 of this damn fool's errand. We're almost out of oxygen and food, with no podcast in sight. The prophets lied. There's no way. Wait, what is that? What is that? It's beautiful.
3, 2, 1, and we're live. What's going on, guys? Welcome to A Grain of Salt podcast, where we research and discuss interesting historical topics we haven't heard of before. We're keeping our fingers crossed you find them interesting.
My name is Jackson, and that's Ethan, and Drew's behind the camera there.
He's kind of the conductor of this symphony.
And a beautiful one it is. Today we have two stories to tell. One from me, one from Ethan, and the interesting thing is we haven't actually divulged this to one another. So I'm kind of in for a surprise here.
Yeah, and we're talking about alcohol, so we're both somewhat familiar with it, and it should be a good time.
Yep.
Did you? What do you think? We should just jump right into this. Did you want to go first?
I think so, yeah. So I have a story, and it's an unsolved murder mystery, and it will reveal a conspiracy that not many people are aware of. Today we're talking about the Russian historian William Pokhlebkin. And William Pokhlebkin was a World War II officer first. Once he came back, he published the history of tea. This history of tea made him very, very popular the world over, actually, even outside of Russia.
I haven't heard of him. I should throw that out there.
Okay, well, he's more of like a historian of culinary arts, I guess we would say, because he didn't stop at the history of tea. No. The next one he published, or tried to publish rather, would be his masterpiece. What he did was he tried to make a giant cookbook filled with thousands of recipes called his magnus opus. This would be the height of his career. And the recipes he collected were from all over the globe and included a cultural background to each and every one of them.
Okay, not just Russian recipes, though. He's around the world?
This is around the world, yes. And this would become a problem because the Soviet Union did not like that he was using ingredients all over the world. But the problem was, we have a communist Soviet government that didn't get many imports.
Exactly. You got to keep it homegrown if you're as nationalist as the Soviet Union was, for sure.
And we know how nationalist the Soviet Union was. So when they heard that someone was publishing a book that was opening the eyes of all these Russian people of new foods that they couldn't actually access at that point, apparently someone became bitter. So he was censored, and Mark Schrad, who actually I'm basing most of my research off of his book, Vodka Politics, which was published in 2014, I believe. And it was amazing because the irony of it, they censored him and rendered him unemployable in a state that kind of boasted the employability of everyone.
Sorry, they silenced William Pokhlebkin.
They canceled his book.
Okay.
And he was censored, so no one was hiring him after that, essentially. But this isn't the end of William Pokhlebkin's story. He would get another chance to redeem himself, which people don't often have, actually, in Soviet Russia at this time. But in 1978, the Poland government sued the Russian government for the exclusive rights to the word vodka.
Can you do that? Sorry. Can you just copyright or trademark a whole alcohol?
Well, the case essentially revolves around who has the origins of vodka. Who invented vodka is basically the basis of this case. Whether or not you can do it, we will see, as William Pokhlebkin was actually recruited to write on the history of vodka, find out the origins of this drink, and fight this lawsuit for the Russian government.
Okay.
Yeah. So thankfully he does. In 1982, he presents his evidence to the International Arbitration Council, and the case is dismissed. So no, apparently you cannot have the exclusive right to vodka if you're Poland. This is on the basis that he apparently proved the origins of vodka to be completely Russian.
So this council, was this only Russian or is it an international committee?
This is an international committee.
Okay.
Basically, these were two communist states, actually, interestingly enough. that were suing each other. And it was kind of interesting that, this is a state-owned. This is a state-owned commodity, vodka is, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, they're allowed to, sue each other for exclusive right to it. I'm not sure past the origins of vodka if it would have any grounds, but we never got that far. So
fair. I mean, from my personal experience anyway, I know vodka's European, but I couldn't say Central or Eastern European for sure. So I feel like they would have to throw some research in there just to figure that out.
Actually, if you had to guess, and I presented you this question earlier, what would you have guessed? Russia or Poland inventing the drink of vodka?
Well, just because of the stigma and the stereotyping around it, I probably would say Russian, just because, I mean, there is that classic, like, the image of like the Russian sipping vodka like it's water, pretty much.
Yeah, there is that stereotype, and I think that's a pretty great reason for why this was such a big deal to the Russian government, that they were willing to give a redemptive chance to Pokhlebkin here. So this isn't quite the end of Pokhlebkin's story. He would then publish the history of vodka in 1991 with the foreword that this publication was never meant for public consumption originally. However, after I think 10 years, 9 years after the International Arbitration Council ruled it proven, he felt okay to do that.
Okay. So wait, he wasn't intending it for public reading, I should say.
Yeah.
So he was just focused on sending it to the Russian government and like kind of redeeming his own name?
It was revolved around a lawsuit. He had no interest in authoring the book, according to him in his foreword.
Okay.
But when you have all this research, you have indisputable proof, according to him, of the origins of vodka. Of course, you maybe want to monetize that, right?
Yeah, no, especially in the Soviet Union, you do what you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So William Pokhlebkin is... How do you feel about William Pokhlebkin, by the way?
I mean, I'm getting some weird vibes, especially considering if he wasn't focused on the whole public consumption of it. In Soviet Union, something that nationalist and that focused on like the culture of Russia, I feel like you're going to want to spread it with the masses.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's a bit of an underdog story, right?
Yeah, but no, in terms of the actual research and the focus of his work, I'd say he seems like a pretty good guy.
Yeah. Just to provide a little more color on it, we'll go into his personal life. He was known as a bit of a recluse, and he was extremely paranoid, possibly because of his earlier censorship. So people around him said that he constantly kind of thought people were out to get him. He had multiple locks on his door. He would not open his door for anyone, not servicemen, not repairmen, plumbers, inspectors, no one but close friends.
Okay.
So this all becomes very, and he collected manuscripts that were like really, really old. So he had all these like valuable historical artifacts in his apartment.
Yeah.
So he's just, he was a reclusive historian.
Yeah, kept to himself.
Yeah, he's buried in the books.
Was he like just a vodka connoisseur then? Like he just drank like nonstop, or?
That's actually a really great question. Surprisingly, the guy who wrote the history of vodka and proved the origins of vodka, supposedly according to him, was sober. Rarely touched the drink ever.
If anyone's ever tasted vodka out there, that seems like you would be the person who knows it best. Just stay away from it. It's not good.
Well, I mean, with a little bit of orange juice, that maybe can be all right. And it wasn't just vodka. I mean, he was sober through and through. He didn't really take to alcohol too much, surprisingly.
All the great writers, except for him.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit of a weird dude, but he is unfortunately it's interesting that he was sober, because in 2000, March 26th, that was the last time we ever saw him.
Okay.
Because someone murdered him.
Oh. Sorry
for dropping that on you.
Oh. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Build up that attachment.
Mm-hmm. He was found in his home with 11 stab wounds with a lawn screwdriver. His doors were locked. There was no signs of forced entry, and he wasn't actually found for weeks after his death. Most curiously, though, and the reason I actually bring up the fact that he was sober was that there was a bottle of vodka next to him, and the autopsy revealed that he had drank it all.
Okay. So like full 2.6, like kind of
yeah,
like 750 mil.
I mean, that's kind of a Canadian term, but yeah, like 26 ounces. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's curious, right? Because he was sober.
Okay.
And there's no sign of forced entry. The murder weapon was never found. I've actually seen some reports, and I think our Fake History podcast said that he was stabbed by a military dagger, his own military dagger.
Oh.
And well, that's thematically amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any documentation that proved this to be true.
Okay. So kind of vibe that the Russian government or Soviet Union's government might have just switched things around a little bit.
That's where the story kind of leads you to believe. Yeah.
Okay.
But after his death, he was given a lot of grace. Many eulogies were written of the. There's one quote that was, this man's name was thought to be a database, for no man could hold that much information. And other things like if you ever had a argument of the culinary arts and the history of it, all you had to do was mention the Pokhlebkin, and usually the argument would fall in your favor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But in 2007, someone disagreed. He read the history of vodka. This is David Christian, and he wrote a pretty scathing review of it.
Just discrediting it, or?
Oh, wait till you hear this.
Okay.
Have a bottle of vodka nearby if you dare to read this book, for it can stun the more thoughtful parts of your brain as you read. And he kind of goes on saying it's, full of baloney, essentially.
Well, that seems a little harsh. The guy just died. Give him some time to breathe.
He didn't just die, though. This was 7 years after, actually.
Okay.
Before other people had obviously criticized him, but David Christian was the most famous of them all. Yeah. And that came 7 years after his death. So there was a lot of celebration of Pokhlebkin. People still actually regard this guy as a monumental historical figure for his work, especially in Russia.
Okay, I was going to say just in Russia, or? Especially
in Russia, but like I said, with the history of tea, he's held relevance. He's held relevance in the around the globe, really. But going off of what David Christian said, the big problem that David Christian had was the heart of the argument. So the actual origins, or Pokhlebkin's version of the origins of vodka.
Yeah, like the start of when they started using the name or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably,
yeah. Usually you'd think, the first written word of vodka would be maybe the what would decide that.
Yeah, usually, my guess would be, I've only ever heard like potato vodka. So I'd assume like the distillation process using potatoes.
Yeah.
Just like whenever that started.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? Distillation process actually started before vodka. So before we had vodka, we had something called aqua vita, which had a high alcohol content, but instead of distilling like rye and like local grains, and potatoes, it was more burnt wine, essentially. They called it burnt water, but it was basically you put some wine in a pot and you cook it down until you have a very high alcohol percentage, right?
Okay.
And that is a big part of Pokhlebkin's argument. He cites he doesn't actually cite this, but there's a Greek monk named Isidore.
Okay.
In the 1430s, he is commissioned by a Russian prince to go to Italy for some diplomatic meeting. The Russian prince is displeased with how this meeting went. Possibly his views were misrepresented by the monk, and he decides to have him imprisoned. Although being a monk, he imprisons him in a monastery full of, a lot of tools, essentially.
Yeah.
He just can't leave the monastery, but it's not like a dungeon, right?
Yeah, he's not being tortured or anything.
No. So he's in the monastery, and obviously very much like to leave. He's Greek. He wants to go back home. So he uses the distillation process that he picked up in Italy for aqua vitae except he doesn't have wine, so he uses what local grains he has, and he cooks up the very first batch of vodka.
Okay.
It's incredibly strong drink. And what he does is he gives this to the guards that are watching him. And they love it so much, they drink a lot, and they eventually fall asleep. Isidore escapes, and here we have the origin of vodka as per William Pokhlebkin.
I want to say that's not true exclusively because the guards enjoyed the vodka so much.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, though, because vodka didn't become popular as a recreational drink like ale or anything else did. It actually became popular sometime around the Black Plague when it was administered as a medicine for pretty much anything.
Sure.
And people hated it because, it's medicine.
Yeah.
No one likes Buckley's.
Yeah.
But, like any medicine, eventually it was found to be used recreationally and abused. And now we have vodka to drink today. But it is a hard to believe story, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't provide any citation for this story.
Okay. And this isn't just like the files were lost and like the expansion of Russia over the years, that kind of thing? Or?
Well, that might be possible, but he didn't have access to those files. And, well, you can prove the existence of a Greek monk, Isidore, that visited Russia, and you can prove the existence of the prince that commissioned the monk. He uses the wrong name for the prince at the time. In the 1430s, he names Prince Vasily III, but Prince Vasily III wouldn't have been born for another 100 or so years. And this was actually Prince Vasily II.
Okay.
Another thing is the ecumenical council he names in Italy is, he says, the 8th. It's actually the 16th, bringing the 8th one way, way back 100 years prior.
Okay.
So he's got like a couple dates here mixed up in the context.
Okay.
And he doesn't provide citation for this. So...
I still want to give him the benefit of the doubt here and just say like, he wrote some numbers wrong or whatever. History majors in school always say that like the dates are like the thing that matters least about different historical events.
Yeah.
I want to give him benefit of the doubt here.
All right. I mean, hey, if he was a student doing his bachelor's, his undergraduate, I might give him to that. But let's face it, he was a world-renowned historian.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be also why you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a very public figure. But... I think you really have to look at the facts when it comes to these things. So something's a little fishy here, right?
Yeah. No, there is something off. Either it sucks at research or something. Something's up.
Yeah. And then it becomes a lot more curious when, remember I said the 1430s is when the monk Isidore did this. But what's more curious is that Poland, this is actually, I think, 2009, Vice did a documentary, and Poland can prove with paper, the taxation of something called Vodka in 1405, which puts it 25 years prior to the monk Isidore story. Not to mention that there's a primary document, a court document, that says 1405, vodka was taxed by the state. So it seems like the Poles maybe have a bit more of a claim to this at this point.
Yeah, even if the name's slightly different. I'm assuming the language interchange is probably the only difference there between the V and the W.
Yeah, exactly. And they still call it vodka. It's the exact same thing. So you could cast doubt on this Polish document, of course, but it definitely seems a lot more credible than what Pokhlebkin has presented when you look at the facts. So how did this International Arbitration Council accept this to be true? How? When we can...
Well, I'm guessing they just didn't see the Polish documents. Fingers crossed, they just turned the other cheek to that, and they were just only focused on the homegrown knowledge from Russia.
One person turned in their homework, the other one didn't. So
I guess so, yeah.
That's it. Well, this becomes interesting, and Mark Schrad's research really becomes the main focus here, and everything I'm pulling off of. Although it is corroborated by some Russian scholars and yada yada. Turns out, if you go to the International Arbitration Committee and you look at all these international companies that handle these lawsuits, they have no record of any Polish or lawsuit against Russians for their exclusive use of the word vodka. In fact, like you said earlier in the beginning of this, can you make the exclusive right to use the word vodka?
Yeah, exactly. Can
you?
You even trademark it in the first place?
It's vodka can be made of rye, it can be made of potatoes, it can be made of all sorts of grains, and still be called vodka. So how such a general commodity or a general term, how do you make the exclusive right to that? You can't. Apparently.
Yeah. I guess not.
No. So why did he write the book? I don't. This is the conspiracy that's been unveiled here. There is no vodka war, like William Pokhlebkin said, and Vice has done a documentary on the vodka wars. David Christian tore his book apart, Pokhlebkin's books apart, for the history of vodka. And while they do a good job of undermining his argument for the origins of vodka, they never really stop to think and check to see if there was ever a lawsuit in the first place. They kind of just take Pokhlebkin's word for it. That in 1982, he went to the Arbitration Council and saved Russia and saved Russian vodka, which is obviously a very valuable commodity there.
I feel like you probably should just start there. Like, just maybe look at like where the base of his argument was and just try and find a document on that somewhere. Yeah.
And this is the problem. And this is a problem with quite a few things in history, is the fact that people seem to take things for granted. But what's more amazing, I think, is the fact that he did this. Like, he thought this out and he made up these facts and he brought them into a book and kind of made himself a hero. And this, like I said, Vodka Politics was published in 2014. So we're looking at like the 2010s. That's when Mark Schrad starts uncovering this.
Yeah.
Before, everyone's just taking it for granted that these existed.
So there was a couple decades where he definitely did save his own skin. Like, he was down and out without a job, and he potentially made up a story and then saved himself really with that.
Yeah. Like we said, he was censored by the Soviet Union. He needed a redemptive arc to keep employed there.
Okay.
So, I don't know. What do you think of this? Like, and let's think back, by the way, to this unsolved murder mystery that no one knows who stabbed William Pokhlebkin, whether it was someone who believed his stories, and maybe it was someone who's sympathetic to the Polish origins of vodka claim, or it was maybe someone from the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, or maybe it was Vladimir Putin, who was inaugurated on the same, or elected on the same day that William Pokhlebkin was last seen alive.
And Putin was in the government like well before. Like, he was in the he was the Secret Service, right?
Yeah, head of the KGB.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, like, let's slow down and think. Vladimir Putin is elected president, right?
Yeah.
First day he's elected president is the last day this guy's seen alive, March 26, 2000. Is this really the top of his priority list? This guy who tried to write a cookbook once and got censored?
Well, I mean, like you said, there was 7 or so years before anyone even started to really discredit his work and really start to research into how much of a fraud Pokhlebkin actually was. So yeah, you're kind of right there. Like, there wasn't exactly like a huge conspiracy even in 2000 when Putin was sworn in.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
might
even
not
like,
have been...
yeah, he wasn't just focused on like the image of the country and everything, because at that time it was still doing just fine for the country. Everyone still believed that vodka was coming from Russia.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It might not have been on his radar. That was by far the most outlandish conspiracy about this that I saw.
Was that Putin was the one in charge here?
Putin was the one that made the hit. I don't believe that at all.
Well, there's so many conspiracies about people like Putin, all the world leaders with power and everything. So.
Yeah. So if you had to take a guess, what happened to Pokhlebkin?
That's good. I really don't know. I mean,
I have a couple theories I could lay out if you need.
So I don't think he killed himself.
Okay.
Because, I mean, even with all the backlash from everyone, like going after him and saying that his work wasn't legitimate, I don't think he was really that much of a disgrace at the time that he died.
Yeah, he was paranoid though. He constantly thought people were out to get him, shortly before his death.
Okay. Well, again, the whole vodka thing and the screwdriver sitting next to him, those are kind of just two.
Screwdriver was actually never found.
The screwdriver was never found.
Yeah, so maybe that does rule out the fact that, I don't know, you could maybe chalk it up to shoddy police work, but he was also stabbed 11 times, so I think you're right. He kind of killed himself.
Yeah, and I know your whole intent of this was definitely not to make me just question all of the primary documents coming out of the Soviet Union, but it kind of just makes you wonder how much of that, the autopsy was even legit.
Actually, that's a good question, too, and I don't think I ever really stopped to consider that the police or the state might have been involved at that point.
Yeah, especially when did he die again?
2000.
2000, right. So even at that point, like, Soviet Union's done for 9 years.
Mhm.
There's still so many, like, strong ties between the police or the KGB and like just the government of the Soviet Union or Russia, I guess.
The Soviet Union has fallen at this point, yeah. So
that's so it is just Russia.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, we still know now they're crazy nationalist.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So he didn't kill himself, and Vladimir Putin didn't do it. So I don't know. It's something you can't really ever answer.
yeah, I hate that the only part of this I actually believe is that he was stabbed 9 times.
11 times.
11 times. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only part that I actually kind of believe out of this, because I don't know why they would change that in the autopsy.
Yeah. And that's a pretty brutal
Yeah, exactly.
way to go. I think we can agree. What do you think of him overall though? Like,
well,
what kind of a man was he?
I mean, I don't blame him for trying to save his skin by just coming up with a story, even if it kind of jeopardized his life in the process of it.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. That's tough.
It's a big lie.
Yeah.
It's a huge lie.
Yeah.
Like, to release that book in 1991 and say this was never really meant for the public, but in 1982, I proved that Russia had the maybe not the exclusive right to the word vodka, but more of a claim to it than Poland did.
Mm-hmm.
And this, by the way, is still a very hot topic. Like, the Eastern European states, vodka is manufactured everywhere. It's distilled everywhere, and each country kind of has our vodka is better, because it's genuine Russian vodka.
Yeah.
And, Poles have their vodka, and they say, oh, it's way more natural ingredients.
Yeah, that's kind of like the big grab here in Canada. If you're buying a bottle of vodka, if you see, like, genuine Russian, you're like, oh, that's got to be the best on the shelf, right?
Absolutely. And actually, just to maybe see if this is true for us, I know you hate vodka.
Not a fan. I have said so many times already that I hate vodka.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do this to you. But we are going to take shots of 2 kinds of vodka. Stolinchia, which used to have the slogan anyway. Only genuine Russian vodka is, or what? Oh, sorry. What is it? Only vodka from Russia is genuine Russian vodka, which is kind of
So, like, they're really making their money off of, like, trust us. This is legit.
A bit of nationalism for sure. But it's also funny that.
It's not even true.
I mean, it is true. I mean, it's like a fact. Genuine Russian vodka only comes from Russia.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's Russian.
Yeah.
And then we have this Polish vodka. I don't know where to put this. Yeah. Well, you can do a half shot if you like, but we just need to taste it. You need to switch it around a bit.
That.
This is Zabrowka. Bison grass. This is kind of just the most popular brand in Canada.
From Poland.
From Poland.
Okay.
So this is what I picked out. I'm not really sure if this is what a Polish person would recommend to me, but it's what I got. And it's cool because it has a little piece of grass on the inside. I guess a strand of that bison grass, and it's kind of fancy, right?
Probably gets the spices in there. I have actually had this before, and you can kind of taste the like the floral aspect of the grass in there. So
oh yeah,
a little bit.
Have you tried Stolinchia?
I think so, but honestly, it probably blends in with the rest of the peroxides that are vodka.
All right, well, I'm gonna give you this Polish vodka, and I want you to just pour yourself a shot of that.
All right.
Pour some Stolinchia. Drew, do you want some? He's shaking his head right now.
Up and down.
Ooh, careful. All right, so we got my Stolinchia.
That was a half shot.
So you got your Polish one in the tall glass.
Yeah, that's what I went for. All right. So you are pouring your Zabrowska. Sorry, we cut and you missed the pour of my Stolichna. But trust me, it's not water. And I'm sure you'll be able to tell that in a second. All right. What's the opening here?
Yeah, what do we do first?
You're in charge here.
So, in honor of William Pokhlebkin.
We're going Russian?
The Russian historian.
Sure.
Let's get Stolinchia.
All right.
As we know.
All right. To Willie P.
Willie P.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yep, that's how I remember vodka.
Did you switch it around? Sorry. Did you switch it around a little bit?
A little bit. Do people who like taste test spirits, is that actually a thing? Do you switch it around? Yeah.
I don't know. I know you do it with wine, don't you?
Yeah.
But that's like 14%. This is like 40.
Honestly, if you taste test spirits, I feel like all of the feeling in your mouth is just gone.
I mean, it was
pretty taste anything.
It was pretty smooth.
Not bad. Better than Smirnoff.
If there's a
That's
fair
kind of
bit of burn.
Yeah.
But pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Let's just take a little.
Yeah. Take a little breather.
Yeah. Take a little chase.
Okay.
Okay.
Get that out of my mouth.
Okay. Remember it though. All right.
I don't think I can ever forget that. We're good.
I will say I watched a Vice documentary before doing this, and they did an interview with a Polish distillery, and of course, if you're Polish, you're gonna claim Poland's vodka is better.
Yeah.
But he actually said that they make it out of exclusive grains, where he kind of accused Russia of making of anything and everything they could get their hands on. So I think this one's made of bison grass, but that's kind of their thing. They'll really advertise. Specialty. Yeah, they'll advertise the ingredients on like every vodka bottle. So if you're drinking rye vodka, they'll let you know. Whereas Silentia seems to, just let you go. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers. This one's so much bigger. Damn it. Yep. That's good right there. Actually, not as bad as I remember it.
I'm really getting that floral taste that you're talking about.
Yeah, right?
It's like kind of almost like a peppermint.
Yeah.
Are you getting that?
A little bit, yeah. And I can see like why there would be such a big difference between the two countries if they're making it with slightly different things.
Yeah.
Also, the whole nationalism thing behind it, like Poland saying they have the best vodka, Russia saying they have the best. Imagine how much faster William Pokhlebkin would have died if he just went on Poland's side and said they have the best vodka.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you can say about William Pokhlebkin, he seemed to sort of love his country. I mean, you could have moved anywhere and made a career in history. He was known for his history of tea.
Yeah.
He didn't really have to make up that lie to find work if he was willing to move out of Russia. But what do we think? What is the superior vodka here? I know my answer. Do you want to?
Well, because I don't like vodka, I think I'm biased.
I'd like to say neither do I.
Yeah.
I don't actually know a single person
that just sips vodka on the rocks. Something like that.
Like no one drinks straight vodka for fun. Maybe their first year in university.
Yeah.
To prove how tough they are, but I'm pretty sure no one goes back after that.
We looked tough though. Just chugging back the cheap polar ice.
I think I saw you cry when you just took that shot right there. A little tear fell out of your eye.
That was strength.
But personally, I gotta go with the Polish.
I was gonna say Russia.
Zabrowka. Oh
yeah, I'm going Russia.
You like the Russian one better.
I think I gotta go Russia.
Oh, what? Why?
It's just like you get that classic vodka taste, and as someone who doesn't like vodka, that sounds like not a good thing. But like it just tastes like the superior vodka because that feels like vodka.
Yeah,
like that's what it's supposed to taste like.
It was a bit hard to anticipate the peppermint and the floral of the Polish one, so I kind of get you want what you're expecting.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta go with the Polish one though. Oh my god, it actually has flavor. Like, it's actually not too bad.
Yeah, when we cut here, you might just do another shot. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think so. I don't actually know. I think I made a bit of a face when I took that, but don't let that be an indication of how good the vodka is. Let that only be an indication of my feelings toward vodka straight.
Sure.
So, yeah, I gotta go with the Polish one there. Whew.
All right.
Any closing thoughts on William Pokhlebkin, and what did we learn here today, maybe?
Well, I mean, alcohol obviously does play a huge role in, especially in the society of the Soviet Union, it seems like. If it's such a big cultural unifier or a national unifier that you can, I mean, save your own skin writing a document about a made-up war. Yeah, I think that kind of just speaks volumes to the actual impact that vodka or alcohol in general can have.
Absolutely. Another thing I think is you can't really take history for granted.
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to take it, but with a grain of salt.
Roll credits. Not actually.
Yeah, you actually have a story, so
yeah, no, I do. And going back to the impact of alcohol on a society, I think that's a pretty good segue into mine. So I'm talking about the history of Uganda, and more specifically how the Waragi industry, or war gin, has impacted their country.
So is war gin what I think it is, like gin?
Yeah, essentially it's a gin that's distilled from molasses and bananas.
Oh, and that's what makes it war gin.
No, so I'll explain it in a bit, but essentially it's just the period that it became prominent in was known as a period of war and political intensity.
Oh, so that's it's a little bit of a warlike spirit.
Exactly. Yeah, and so really a good segue point. So you said Russia starts as a vodka drinker from an early period, right?
Yes. I think so earliest we have is early 1400s.
Okay. Do you know how much vodka or alcohol they drink now per person?
Oh, I don't,
like a year.
All I know is that in 2006 they introduced a whole lot of laws that essentially cut down their drinking by like a third, and really helped a whole lot of a problem of alcoholism in their country. But I wouldn't even know exact numbers.
So in 2020, the World Health Organization, who kind of determines the statistics, they calculated that Russians on average drink 11.5 liters of pure ethanol alcohol per person per year. It's kind of a random number to just fathom.
Let me digest that.
So basically it's 48 60s, another Canadian term that we have, but
yeah,
essentially 60-ounce bottles, 48 of those per person per year.
So when we're talking 10 liters of alcohol per person per year,
yeah,
is that pure alcohol? Is that only like say 40% of the vodka bottle? Because alcohol content is 40%.
Yeah, because alcohol comes in so many different varieties and different quantities. Like beer sits at 5%, wine's usually like 11 or something like that. They usually just go by like the pure alcohol, which is about 96%. So it would be 11.5 liters of that, but it would be 60 or 48 60s of any other spirit, really.
Wow.
Yeah. So your vodka there, so it would be double that and then 48 of those a year.
A year per person in Russia.
Yeah, and that's people over the age of 15. And that statistic, keep in mind, is only the regulated alcohol in the country. So anything that's sold and created by people with license. So it's the alcohol that the government can actually track the consumption of.
Right. That is mind-blowing. Like that, I mean, I'm not trying to shame anyone. I like to have a good time too. But I can't see getting anywhere close to there.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I feel like if we actually calculated how much we drank, it wouldn't be that close.
I mean, I drink a fair bit of beer, so maybe I'm shaming people when I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a lot.
It's tough to put into perspective, right?
Yeah.
So to compare that to Uganda, which Vice labeled the drunkest country in the world, and in Africa, especially in 2012, they drink 9.5 liters per person per year. So less than Russia. You would think that, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
But apparently 89% of drinking goes unrecorded in a third world country like Uganda.
Oh, okay, so there's a lot of illegal trade, black market.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually estimated that 9.5 liters could be around 23. So double Russia's consumption.
Okay, so that's an estimation, of course.
Yeah, exactly. That's their rough guesstimate.
Right. Wow. Drunkest country in the world is Uganda.
Yeah, that's actually not...
the World Health Organization?
That's by Vice. The World Health Organization, they declared Moldova the drunkest country in the world in 2016. They drank about 15 liters of alcohol. So Uganda is estimated as like 8 liters higher.
Wow.
So you can kind of see where they get the drunkest country in the world title from, at least for Vice's sake. I'm not saying that Vice is correct in their assumption on that, but that was their go-to on the video.
Yeah, they were somewhat lacking in my story, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, it does mean a lot of trades going on then, a lot of money being moved around, people are buying alcohol.
Yeah, and I think it is important to know the background of the country and understand where that culture of drinking comes from. So just to go into that, Uganda became a country in 1962. They gained their independence from the British Empire. And right off the bat, they have an election, and a guy by the name of Milton Obote is named the first president. And, he seems like a pretty positive leader for the country until about 1966, where he's caught in a gold smuggling scandal with him and the head of the military, Idi Amin. You may have heard that name before.
The Butcher.
Yes, the Butcher of Uganda.
Oh.
It's important to remember that name. He keeps coming back up.
Right. Okay. So first, that was Milton
Obote.
Obote.
Yeah.
Gold smuggling.
Yeah. So from 1962 to 66, he's the prime minister of Uganda. And he's caught in this gold smuggling scandal where Idi Amin is essentially caught with just a random $300,000 in a private bank account just out of nowhere. So it's assumed that he's smuggling gold from South Sudan, his home country, just to the north of Uganda. And so they call for an investigation of Idi Amin and Obote. And so in response to that, Obote declares a state of emergency and names himself president. So essentially no investigation can go on.
Wow.
Yeah. So he seizes control of the military and he gains control of 60% of all of the businesses in Uganda. So really it's corruption. It's a
dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hunger for power. He's really just trying to gain his own political interests and gain his own power.
Also interesting that he's actually from South Sudan and he becomes this dictator of Uganda.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So 1969, Idi Amin, after being removed from the military during that coup, he rejoins with the military and they retake control of the country. Milton Obote, he goes off to Ethiopia, I think it was. Just hides out throughout the 1970s because that's when Idi Amin is the leader of Uganda. So 1971, Idi Amin's officially sworn in. And right off the bat, he turns it into a police state. He starts up a secret police. He turns all government buildings into essentially detention centers for torture.
So he's doubling down on what Milton Obote started.
Yeah. But what he's claiming to do, where Obote kind of seemed like right off the bat, he was doing it for his own gain. Idi Amin says that he wants to retake control of the Ugandan government and give it back to the people. And so Ugandans they're going to be doing better than they were in the 1960s. So where the 1960s was this desire for power, the 70s was just corruption and a military state.
Yeah, I could see how that could be an appealing motto to get you in power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's important to remember as well is that Idi Amin was only given the power because it's believed that the Western powers helped him out in the coup.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So we have some Western intervention here.
Yeah.
That's familiar.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Not the first time that's ever happened in Africa. But so throughout the 1970s, about between 80,000 and 500,000 people are killed on Idi Amin's watch. just through various civil wars and political uprisings, revolts, followed by military strikes. So not exactly a great time, and you can obviously see where the war gin starts to factor in here. Because the economy is so controlled by the state, Idi Amin actually gives all of the major government positions to people of Muslim and South Sudanese descent. So where he says, oh, Ugandan's going to take control, it's actually just people from his native country that are given the power.
Oh, really? He's also from South Sudan.
Yes, exactly. Oh. Yeah. So right off the bat, you have two leaders that seem to be not in it for the gain of Uganda or for the benefit of Uganda. So that's pretty much, that sums up the 1970s. 1979, there's another coup. This time, Milton Obote, the former president, and actually the current president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, the two of them, along with several other groups that are exiled from the country, they regain control. And there's an election in 1980, and it's actually the first election in Uganda's history at that point.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, up until that point, it's just been whoever's at the top of the chain, they're just given power.
Right. It's a bit of a dictatorship. What prompted them to have this election?
Really just because it had been so corrupt for the last 20 years.
Right.
That was just kind of the shift. They wanted some form of democracy. The only problem is Milton Obote, the original president, is actually the country, or the leader, I should say, that it wins the election.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So
he makes a comeback?
I mean, that's the thing. There's so much conspiracy around it that it wasn't a fair election.
Oh, that also sounds familiar.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's given power. And from 1981 to 85, he pretty much does the exact same thing. He's trying to just seize power for himself. And he really casts more war onto the country and essentially aims all of the military's focus on people who say that the election is rigged.
Okay, so he's focused on controlling power. I imagine his motivation is still his bank account.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. That gold smuggling scandal is really kind of a prominent feature. It seems to keep coming back, where he's focused on his personal gain.
Right, and Idi Amin, he seems a bit more idealistic, in a really horrific way.
Well, yeah, he's kind of a military general that was just given too much power.
Right.
So he kind of, to quote Drake on this, he started from the bottom, and then
now he's here.
Yeah, he rose up. But in 1979, finally, he's kicked out, and he is actually just paid off by Uganda, just to go to a country and essentially just stay there. Don't be in politics anymore.
Idi Amin, the butcher of Uganda, is paid off to just leave and walk off scot-free.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't come back. You've done enough here.
I'm wondering, like, when they're gonna get in, someone who's from Uganda
exactly
into power right now.
So that is where they're at now. And so in 1985, after Obote killed another 300,000 people, in the wars from 80 to 85. So there's another coup. Museveni, the leader of the country now, he leads another coup against Obote, and he's given presidency in 1986. And as soon as that happens, it seems like the first moment of like optimism.
This is progress.
Exactly. It seems like that. So 86, he allows certain minorities to come back into the country after they were kicked out when Amin said that Ugandans needed to take control of the government and the economy, even though they didn't.
Okay.
So about 80,000 Indians, people from the subcontinent of India, they're brought back into the country. And so, because essentially they're just merchants, right? They're just running shops, they're running businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the first two, Idi Amin and Obote.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like they were actually. Is it bad that I'm having a hard time discerning the differences between the two?
Honestly, it is just that.
And it seems like that classic the Indians are taking our jobs.
Yeah.
And we got to get back to Ugandans employed.
Exactly. Corruption, rinse, repeat is really what the first 20 years was of that.
And they're murdering people. Like, it sounds like some genocide at this point.
Exactly.
Call it.
So 86, he's sworn in, brings people back into the country, and it's looking good. The economy was getting significantly stronger. 1991, though, he changes the poverty line. So normally the poverty line is like $1.90 US a day. Is like, if you make less than that in a day, you're below the poverty line. So he actually switched the poverty line to be $1.05 US a day. So it looks like less people are under the poverty line. So, it looks like the economy's going stronger, but there's actually just as many people below it. They just lowered the...
And people who are slightly above that now are missing out on these crucial social services.
Exactly. If there were any, because the country's been so corrupt for 20 years.
Okay.
So Obote stays in power throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, throughout the 2000s, throughout the 2010s, and now it's 2021, and they just recently had an election, and he just won his 6th term.
So they are having elections.
Yes. Since then, since 86.
And he just keeps getting voted in over and over. There's no limit on terms.
So that's actually what I was just about to mention, is that in 1996, he changed the limit of the number of terms that you could run from 2 to unlimited. And then in this past election, sorry, not this past one, 2016, he changed the constitution again to go from you had to be below the age of 75 to you can rule until you're dead.
Because he is over the age of 75 now.
Yes, he's 82, I believe.
He's 82 around the country, eh?
Yeah. But I mean, hey, he's still releasing workout videos on his social media. He's trying to keep everybody fit during COVID. So he's a young 82. He's a spry guy. He's staying fit. He's trying to be a good image.
Are you telling me
I
can look up the president of Uganda and I might find a workout video from him?
Like, I'm
thinking like Jillian Michaels, like P90X, like the ab trainer.
Yeah,
like
so imagine that, but he runs a third world country and he's doing it in his massive mansion.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, but also really, really funny.
Yeah. So going back to how alcohol kind of factors into this. He's basically said, Museveni, that is, he said that alcohol is terrible and it shouldn't be consumed. It ruins the productivity of a country, and it's bad. It's bad news. He's changed the policy so that you need to have a liquor license to sell alcohol, he's kind of trending in the right direction.
That's fair.
The problem is, the average income of Uganda is about 63 million Ugandan shillings.
Oh.
Which is about 21,000 Canadian dollars. So it's low, but when you factor in the cost of living, it's probably so much lower. It's not too bad. You can live off that.
Right.
A liquor license in Uganda is $17 Canadian.
Okay.
So easily affordable. But almost anybody can buy a license and then sell.
Okay.
And in stores that are actually governments regulating the alcohol, you can get a 200 milliliter, which is the smallest bottle of alcohol that you can get. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think they call them Dickies here.
Right.
Minis, pretty much. That goes for about 20 cents Canadian.
Okay. That's quite a few shillings still.
Yeah, it's a decent amount, but when you factor in that they're making about 21,000 on average, that's nothing.
That's fair, yeah. It seems like actually this is maybe a good direction to go.
Yeah, so he's actually upping the prices of Waragi as well, which is still pretty much like one of, if not the only, drinks that you can get that are alcohol or alcoholic. But the problem is not the things that are being sold in the government regulated stores, it's everything else. Because in the smaller communities outside of Kampala, the capital, and other districts of Uganda, there's people that are just trying to make Waragi just to make ends meet, essentially, where you can actually get one of those 200 milliliter bottles for less than a cent.
Oh, okay. So
of
there's
Canadians.
a pretty substantial black market.
Exactly.
And that may go along with the fact that he lowered the poverty line. So
Exactly.
So while he's kind of progressive in the way of the liquor licenses and everything, the fact that
Exactly.
he lowered the poverty line is working directly against that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So his net worth is actually $4 billion American. Museveni's.
What?
Yeah.
The president. Okay.
Yeah. That's his net worth. That's estimated. Obviously, like, you don't know where his assets are and all that. So that's a guesstimate. But it's still, just compare that to the 21,000. That's the average. And that's in like the major regions.
And that's probably not all from his workout videos, I assume.
No, unfortunately, he's not making much off those, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, he's pretty much ruined the business for anyone inside of the cities. So the people in the smaller communities, they're forced to do that, and they're forced to sell Waragi because the communities are so dependent on it now.
Right.
Which you don't want communities so dependent on hard alcohol like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to top that off, because of the lack of state resources and services available, people making Waragi in those smaller communities, sometimes they're mixed with industrial chemicals because of the water isn't clean, or the barrels they're using can't contain the pressure of the Waragi. So there's explosions constantly. In 2010, I think it was, there was actually an explosion in a small community where 80 people were killed.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that's got to be way over 40%, I gotta assume.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it can vary because
I don't know how flammable liquor is, but to kill 80 people with, one explosion of alcohol? Like,
exactly. And then the industrial chemicals as well, right? Again, almost, I think it was in the same year, actually. There was a small community that, because of the batch that was mixed with industrial chemicals, that was another 100 people that were killed and just had organ failure because
it's just too strong.
Exactly. And no one in the community wanted to admit that they were distributing and drinking this Waragi because it's illegal.
Yeah, and they're relying on it for
exactly.
money. It's a huge part
That's
of
the
their
whole
trade.
business. Yeah. So really, the political situation of Uganda has made it so that Waragi needs to be one of the primary businesses in the smaller communities. But at the same time, the services, because of the government, aren't making it a safe business.
Right.
So it's become a problem because they're so dependent on it, but they really don't have a solution right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not too different from a lot of countries. I mean, a lot of countries, this is a huge commodity. Alcohol brings in tax dollars for a whole lot of countries. It's
exactly.
Like one of the first things that governments ever taxed.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, it's the same with European countries. Alcohol is kind of like intertwined into the culture. Like, it's a social factor. It's tied to religion. It's just like it's ingrained into the society at this point. So
it can be positive, though.
It can be, for sure. Like, all of these people that are so dependent on it for the consumption, they're also dependent on it for just selling it.
Right.
So obviously, this isn't an easy question to answer, and I don't think that it's for any one person to answer. But like, where do you? I mean, it's also for everyone else. But like, where does Uganda really go from here?
Where do they go? So you got 4 different presidents.
Yeah, 4 presidents in 60 odd years.
Yeah, and I mean, amongst all the, political and genocidal issues.
Yeah.
If we look at just the question of alcohol, it does seem as though alcohol can be a positive thing here, and it seems like the liquor license and Museveni.
Yeah, Museveni.
Yeah, so Museveni, he's introducing liquor licenses. That seems positive. That seems like, okay, so now we're regulating what we're making. The Waragi is made in an ingestible dose.
Yeah.
Hopefully a little less explosive.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Right.
So that seems to be the right direction. How you shut down this black market that is supporting people that are hovering around the poverty line? Well, that is the toughest question to answer. How you handle that black market? Should they maybe make liquor licenses available for everyone, or will that put everyone into the alcohol industry, and maybe other industries will be neglected. I'm not sure. It seems like maybe they have to diversify their industry.
And that's kind of been the issue, is that because since they've let all of these minorities back into the country and this immigration is kind of rising again, these Asian peoples are really taking control of the industries that have
a lot of foreign investment.
Exactly. They have that foreign investment and they have the potential for growth.
Right.
Whereas the Waragi industry, it's so just tied on the demand from the people.
Can we just hover on the fact that their president is worth $4 billion at least?
Exactly. And that kind of ties into the recent election where he had his most significant foe or opposition, Bobi Wine, who was a pop star. Before he was running against Museveni, and it was supposed to be a fair election, and Bobi Wine was thrown into prison in November for campaigning in an area because COVID wasn't allowing campaigning. He did it anyway.
Elections are coming up. You gotta get your message
exactly.
out. Sorry.
All good. But essentially he's thrown into prison, but it's in an area it didn't have a COVID lockdown.
I do have to ask. Mm-hmm. Like, this sounds an amazing light at the end of the tunnel. Is Bobi Wine, the pop star, what's he arguing for? Like, what was he bringing to the table?
So Museveni seems to think that the older generations of Uganda, and I think this is like a pretty African ideal, is that like you have the ideas of the ancestors, you have the ideas of past generations, and like it's important to respect the elders, and those are the people that hold seniority in the culture.
Okay.
So he is advocating for those people, and he trusts that they're all going to vote for him. Bobi Wine goes the opposite direction and says that no, everyone in Uganda's experienced enough suffering, and the young people don't deserve that. So he's really advocating for like the younger generation, that they don't need to grow up with this corruption and this genocide.
And he's from Uganda.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
and like impoverished Uganda as well. Like not Kampala, not the capital. So like northern Uganda. That's really where, so like he knows the disadvantages of living in smaller communities in Uganda.
And is he like a little bit older? Because
he's young. He is pretty young. I think he's 30.
Oh, that's a little bit older than I was expecting. Because when you say pop star, I start thinking like Justin Bieber.
No, yeah.
Travis
throughout the
Scott.
2010s, he was like, throughout his 20s, he was like he was creating music, again, for younger generations. So that's kind of been his main demographic.
Okay.
But in this past election, Museveni banned social media, which you can kind of see what people that would...
like Bobi Wine would probably use social media. Yeah,
exactly. That would really affect the younger generation, and it wouldn't affect the older generation.
Right.
So Museveni won the election. He won 60% of the vote. And again, there's people saying that the election was rigged and it's unfair. And that's really been the first one since Museveni's been elected that there's been a huge controversy. So I don't know, maybe that's positive, that they're really starting to question legitimacy of the elections now.
Yeah, it also makes you think when Bobi Wine is arrested for breaking COVID protocols by campaigning. Yeah. Well, it seems like Museveni's maybe put him in a box. He shut down social media for the country. For one, I mean, let's not even get into, the restriction on freedoms there.
Yeah.
But two, how else is Bobi Wine supposed to get his message out?
Yeah, no, exactly. And Museveni's kind of similar to the other leaders in that sense that he's focusing on his own personal gain and his own personal power. But in like the modern democracies, you kind of need to hide your true intentions if you're going to get away with any of that, because there are more international communities in place that are looking to stop that.
Right. I can see how he is a bit more, I want to say sly than say Idi Amin or
exactly Obote. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, exactly. And that's kind of where the troubles are, is that similar to yours, there's no legitimacy in it, but he's kind of masking it as if there is some. So yeah, it's tough because he holds so much power, more so than anyone else in the country, Museveni.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the reaction to him winning? Like, when's the next election? Is Bobi Wine going to run?
So Bobi Wine's still in lockdown, like in his own home. And that's actually just because of the safety post-election. Because in response to the original him being thrown into prison, there was a protest in Kampala, one of the major cities, and 80 people were killed by the military just for protesting because they said that's like disruption to the peace and
was
corruption
this
against the country.
after or before the election?
Before the election.
Shortly before?
Yeah, exactly. It was like early December.
80 people shot by the
military? Yeah, 80 civilians.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
he won with 61% of the vote.
Yeah, he won with 61%, 60%, somewhere in there.
Were these protesters being violent at all, or?
So there's no footage of it. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But from what I've heard and what I've read, it seems like it was like a peaceful protest. They were trying to demand a fair election, and the military just intervened, and that was kind of where the force came in, was just from the military.
I gotta say that's it's pretty tragic.
Yeah.
I saw a little light at the end of the tunnel.
I know,
with Bobi
right?
Wine.
Yeah. 1986 seemed like a little bit of optimism when Museveni started, and then it was kind of just 25 years of slowly losing the optimism and becoming more personal gain.
Right. I mean, I gotta say, with this information, so I don't know if they have elections every 4 years or whatever.
It is 4 years, yeah.
So if it's 4 years, 2024, 2025, go Bobi Wine.
Yeah,
right?
And we're not involved in the election or in Ugandan politics or anything, but from like an international perspective, you obviously hope that the people actually get some agency.
Yeah, and I do think there's a responsibility to keep up with what's going on.
Exactly.
Especially like after, their kind of turbulent history with politics.
Exactly.
And the conspiracies with Western intervention maybe causing Idi Amin to come into power.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Plus, also, not to mention, I mean, like, we're two guys very far from Africa, and I've heard the story. I'm telling the story to you. So, I mean, maybe it's hopeful that people are getting the story out of Uganda now, and not just like Vice was doing, just about booze. They're actually like tying the political components to it. So I don't know. Maybe there's some optimism in 4 years.
Right. Well, I hope so. I really do. That is a bit of a tragic story.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, you have a industry set up for alcohol that's clearly doing well. And if it's regulated, and if we have maybe Bobi Wine come into power.
Exactly.
There could be, it seems to be getting better and better.
Exactly. No, and that's what you hope for. Is that even if it's unfortunately violent response right now, you hope that in 4 years it can just be a political response. Right.
I mean, like, let's comparing, and this isn't really maybe fair, it doesn't make it right. But if you do compare Museveni to Idi Amin, it does sound like a bit of an improvement. And if things keep going this way, maybe people can feel safe protesting and
exactly
voting in elections.
Yeah. No, and that's really all we can hope for.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, similar to yours, I think that it kind of shows the role that alcohol has in a society and how it can become almost like a cultural unifier and a progressive component in a society, even if it does have negative effects as well. But yeah, did you have anything to respond there?
I mean, the alcohol industry does sound like a double-edged sword. And I think it's kind of all it was to show. It's kind of about creating a narrative. In both our stories, it seems like creating a narrative delivered a lot of legitimacy for a long time. But in hindsight, we look back on these things and we see we could have done a little better.
Exactly.
And we should do a little better. I mean, it's supposed to be a fun episode about alcohol, but, it's
interesting and it's not all fun times.
No.
But I mean, I think that
this is a valuable resource.
Exactly. And the idea of the narrative, I think, is actually important because that is essentially kind of what we're doing here. We're just trying to find interesting narratives that we've never heard of.
Yeah, I've never, I've never really heard anything about Ugandan politics. And I feel like I just kind of got a crash course in it from 1963 to on.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was hoping for, and same goes for the vodka wars. I think that the secrecy of the Soviet Union kind of is brought to light with your story. Yeah. And I mean, hey, we could talk about alcohol in the process.
Yeah, so this was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should
Same time next week, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Right on. Well, thanks for tuning in. And I think it is important to remember that we're not experts on this by any means. So I think you should just take what we say with a grain of salt.
Next week, we are doing the Olympics. Stay tuned.
See you next time.